Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. You may notice I'm in a slightly different environment to usual because I'm in a Premier Inn hotel rather than at home. I'm in Birmingham because I've been to the Nystagmus Network UK's Open Day. Now if you don't know what nystagmus is, it's basically a condition where my eyes move about and wobble all the time, so I can't focus on things very easily at a distance because I can't maintain the focus for a decent length of time. I made a whole video on it, so I'm not going to elaborate on it in detail here. But basically the open day is for people with the condition to meet, often for the first time that they've met people with the condition other than themselves. They can find out about the latest technology and research, hear other people's stories and experiences, and just generally use it as a networking and information session. And it was a really, really good day, really, really interesting, really good fun. And I wasn't just there as a guest, I was actually asked to go and give a talk there. Because recently I wrote an article for the Nystagmus Network UK's online newsletter about my move to London and how I've been settling in. And directly off the back of that, they asked me if I would then come in and do a talk about how I was building my social network up in the city, because I'd had to do it completely from scratch. So I was very flattered to be asked. I agreed to do it. I was very nervous about doing it, very apprehensive, because I've never given like a public speech about myself before. The only previous time I've given a public speech is a best man speech, which is kind of very different. Yes, that gave me the confidence to kind of say yes to the Nystagmus Network, because I knew I could speak in public, but I was still obviously very nervous because it was the first time I got up and spoke about myself. So I was very self-conscious about it, but I wanted to give it a go and push myself, just as I've been doing with many things this year, trying new things. I thought it was worth a go, and I was flattered they're interested. So I put a speech together and I rehearsed it, and it flowed very, very well this morning. It got a lot of good reaction, and I wanted it to be interactive, so I kind of spoke about myself for the first 15 minutes, and then for the second 15 minutes, opening up to the audience to talk about their experiences, their thoughts, any questions they had. And we had a good chat in the second half of the session, like a group of us. And then after the talk, after we'd gone into like a networking lunch session, I had various people coming up to me and thanking me for giving the speech and saying it was very good and that they resonated with it. I think it gave people a lot of kind of confidence and reassurance, which is very humbling, and I'm glad it went down so well. So if anybody was there on the day and spoke to me and you're watching this, thank you very much. It was lovely to meet you, and indeed thank you to the Nystagmus Network UK for inviting me, particularly Sue, who sent me the invite to come along. It's very much appreciated, and I'm glad I was able to contribute. So basically I wanted to give a video version of that talk here, so you guys can see what I said, and also in case it helps you, gives you any reassurance or ideas or whatever. Obviously, my situation is unique to me, but based on my own experiences and what I've had to do. Your situation, your life is unique to you. So I'm not saying you have to copy exactly what I've been doing. The message I kind of want to get across is, if you see an opportunity there for something you want to do, take it, try it. Doesn't matter if it's with visually impaired people or disabled people or ordinary non-disabled people like mainstream people. Doesn't matter, as long as you feel you can do it, then it's worth trying. You never know what might result. I've had some very surprising outcomes to the things I've tried this year. So you may well too. You never know what the future will hold. You never know what will result when you try things. So to set the basic context, my mother and I moved to London from the West Country at Christmas in December 2016, which was last year as I'm filming and posting this. And that was a big surprise to the people we knew, who we told when we were going to be doing it. And it was a big surprise to us in many ways, because it's not something we'd ever planned to do. We'd always planned to stay in Devon. That was always the expectation. And indeed, I was planning to move to Exeter. I was kind of on the verge of doing that, because I went to school, college and university in the city. So I got to know quite a lot of people there. I had a good social foundation I knew I could build on when I got there. And I know my way around the city. There's plenty to do. There's good career opportunities, transport links, etc., etc. So I would have been very, very happy there. But life likes to throw us all curveballs, as we all know, and in our case, Dad passed away unexpectedly early, just as he was due to retire, and that changed everything, as you can imagine. And as a direct result of that, Mum wanted to move back to London, because there was nothing for her in Devon anymore. Mum and Dad had originally come from London, but they had met at the RNIB's Manor House in Torquay, which used to be like a rehabilitation centre, helping visually impaired people learn living skills and that kind of thing, so they could adjust and adapt. The reason Mum wanted to move back was because the opportunity was still there. Her mother was still alive at the time, so her house was still there. And the original plan was to kind of for Mum to move in with her and me to perhaps get my own place. But then her mother died a couple of years later anyway, at the age of 105, which freed up her house entirely, and we inherited it. And originally, we would have sold the house if Dad had still been alive, because he wanted to retire in Devon. That's what was keeping us there. But with Dad gone, we were now keen to kind of move into the London house and make a fresh start. So that's what we did. It's a house we know because it's the house Mum grew up in. It's a house I visited a lot as a kid. So we know the property, we know the area, we know our way around. So it's very familiar territory, very comfortable territory. But that, of course, meant leaving my own social network behind in Devon. You know, I'd been in my own kind of social bubble, or even my own social bubble wrap, if you like, even you say, for many years. You know, I'd been living a very kind of routine, basic life, I suppose. I've been hanging out with the same people, doing the same things in the same places, because it hadn't seemed like there was much else to do. There hadn't been much incentive to be adventurous and try new things. I was always kind of very much playing it safe and sticking with what I knew. And that was absolutely fine. I was very happy like that. You know, I love my friends. I love where I used to live. And I was just happily biding my time until I got to Exeter, you know, to expand my horizons a bit there. But now, of course, I was going to be moving to a city where there is tons of things to do. It's a beautiful, amazing city, London, and I don't think I'll ever get bored there because there is so much going on. But the irony of living in such a vast city with millions and millions of people is that it's much easier to become socially isolated because you just become an anonymous figure in this huge sea of people, in this huge crowd. You know, because everyone just bustles about doing their own thing, minding their own business. It's much harder to get noticed. You know, you can't just walk into a pub and say, you know, hello, I'm new here, can I come and talk to you? You know, because A, they look at you funny if you do it in that voice, and B, you just have to be very, very confident to do something like that. And I didn't want to use things like dating apps to meet people because that just feels kind of too unsafe to me. I know it works for a lot of people, it's very successful, but I'm too wary about using something like that. And at the end of the day, it's not what I'm after. I'm just after making any friends, you know, just friendships in general. That's all I really care about at the moment. So I had to think about how I was going to kind of stand out from the crowd and get myself noticed and start making some friends and meeting people. So my first thought was, well, I'm going to have to get a job up there. I've got 12 years of experience behind me in my current role. I know I'll get good references. So I should be able to find something up there reasonably easy, one would hope. And then, you know, through that, the people I work with, you know, will hopefully become friends, or hopefully be able to develop some social connections through them. You know, that would probably be really useful. But no, my employer in Devon actually wanted to keep me on and offered for me to become a home worker, which I was very happy to do. Like I say, I like the job, I like the people I work with, and it would give me job security, one less thing to worry about when I moved. So that was absolutely fine. We did that. So they've installed a broadband connection in my bedroom and set the computer equipment up, and I've been working there ever since. And I'm very happy that way. It works very well. You know, you miss the camaraderie of the office, of course, but I'm happy working on my own. I get on with it fine, and you know, I go down to Devon and, you know, meet my colleagues every so often. I'm going for a Christmas lunch later this year, for instance. So yeah, it's working out fine. But that, of course, doubled my risk of social isolation because now I wouldn't be interacting with anybody on weekdays as well as at the weekends. So there was a very real risk that I was going to become very lonely and isolated if I wasn't careful. And I really now had to find a way of meeting strangers in London on my own to try and make some friends. And that was a very, very daunting prospect. So I was very unsure about how to do that and a bit kind of apprehensive about it. But I did what everybody does when you don't know what to do these days. I went online because the internet's an amazing resource. And for about a year or so before I moved up to London, I was looking at various sites and, you know, bookmarking various things in my browser, you know, London guides and things about the various attractions and transport and news and all this kind of stuff, just so I had a list of resources there. And then amongst all the stuff I was looking at, I started finding out about social groups where you can go to specially hosted events designed for complete strangers to come together and engage in all sorts of hobbies and activities, you know, be it game or quiz nights, theatre visits, walks, trips to museums and galleries. You know, whatever your interest may be, there's something out there for you. You know, the big site that a lot of people know of is Meetup. You know, you can go to groups on every hobby and interest you can possibly imagine on there all over the country. There's loads of groups on there. But the site I went for wasn't actually Meetup. It was a different site that caught my eye called Thinking Bob. Now, Thinking Bob are one of a few social groups in London. So, I mean, this is by no means an advert for them. By all means, shop around and see what works best for you. But Thinking Bob caught my eye because of the activities they did. They do things like quiz nights. They do things like walks in scenic areas of London. They go to theatre shows. They do tours around galleries and museums. They do Cards Against Humanity nights. They do street treasure hunts. They do book club. They do all sorts of things. And it really caught my eye, and I thought, I can do a lot of these things. My site wouldn't stop me from doing these things. And I was really, really tempted by it for quite a while. And as it became closer to the time when we were going to move, I thought, I really want to give this a go. So I got in touch with them privately on Twitter and said, look, I'm thinking of joining. I am visually impaired a little bit. Is that going to be a concern to you? Is that going to be a bother to you? And they said, no, that's absolutely fine. We'd love to have you join us. Come aboard. So that's what I did. I joined up with them. Now, one of the other things that attracted me to Thinking Bob was the way they introduced newbies into the fold. Because one of my worries is if I'm joining a group where people already know each other, how easy is it going to be to get involved? I just don't know anybody in the group. How safe is it going to be, etc. And the way Thinking Bob do it is they have what are called signature socials. And basically, any member of Thinking Bob can offer to host an event, if they want to do something that they think other people will also be interested in. But with these signature socials, they are hosted by the Thinking Bob staff themselves. And you have to go to one of these as a newbie. And basically this means that the member of staff there can meet you, which is a kind of verification for them. You can meet the staff and ask them questions, and they will then help you to kind of meet people. They'll introduce you and get you started on conversations and make sure you're happy. And I really like the sound of that, a helping hand to kind of get me involved. So I signed up for one of these. I signed up for a new members drinks night. And the venue was easy enough to find. Obviously with smartphones these days, navigation is easy. My main worry really on the navigation side was finding them inside the venue, because obviously trying to find specific strangers in a pub full of loads of other strangers is kind of asking for trouble. But I'm Thinking Bob, they reserve like the upstairs room or a special area at the back of the pub, whatever, dedicated just to their group, to their session. So they sent a text message around beforehand saying where they were. They were upstairs. So it was easy enough to just go in and, I may have had to kind of ask someone where the stairs were perhaps, but once you find them and you get upstairs, you know that the only people up there are the Thinking Bob group. So it's ideal. And I went in there and, I was very, very nervous. I wasn't sure what would happen. I didn't know if people would be put off by, my wobbly eyes and the fact I can't make kind of eye contact very easily. I don't kind of stare people in the face because I know it will just look worse if I do that. I didn't know if that would be a problem, if they'd be wary about interacting with someone who's visually impaired or whatever. But I was welcomed very, very warmly. And as soon as I got a drink, I got chatting to a guy called Neil. We went and sat down and we ended up chatting for like the best part of 3 hours. During that time, other people were joining us as well. The hosts of the evening were joining us. Other new members were coming over to say hi. We had existing members of the group also coming over to say hi because they like to come along and welcome new people as well. So it was a really nice atmosphere and I felt really welcome there. And as a result of that, I've been to a lot of events with them since. I've been a member ever since. So I've been to things like curry nights and Cards Against Humanity nights and lots of quiz nights with them. And I've been on walks with them and to museums with them and all sorts of bits and pieces. I think my favourite event so far has been a treasure hunt on the tube, where you have to solve clues and then race around the tube, taking photos at stations to prove that you found them and things. And everybody's been really supportive and welcoming. My site hasn't been a problem. At worst, maybe people have been a little bit wary or shy on occasion about talking to me just in case, they say something wrong or they're just not sure what to say in the first place. But by and large, on the vast majority of cases, it's been absolutely fine. And everybody there is really lovely. And I've become a familiar face there now. So, when I go into events, people who recognise me welcome me very warmly. So I've been very happy there. So the very fact that I could do that, from pretty much the outset when I moved here, gave me a lot of confidence knowing that I could now go to events like this and meet strangers safely and have a good time with them and interact with them. And it really gave me a boost. And it also gave me a boost in terms of going out on my own as well, because now I knew I could go out on my own, not because it was the only option, but because it was an option. I was now starting to have variety. I now started to have choice in what I did, which, it makes a huge difference. So that was a really good start. But I wanted to meet visually impaired people as well, of course, because I knew I'd be able to, relate to them and get on well with them quite easily. And as I got registered with the local council and the social services and got my disability registration transferred up, I was told about the local visually impaired group in my area. And basically, there's an organisation in London called the Thomas Pocklington Trust who oversee a whole swathe of groups across the capital, and the one nearest to me is East London Vision. And within that, they have like little subgroups for each borough. So I joined the one for the visually impaired people of Newham, and they were really friendly, really welcoming, as I knew they would be. And I've made some very good friends in that group already. And I've been to a lot of fun events with them. I've been to the Natural History Museum for a touch tour. I've been to London Zoo and Richmond Park. With East London Vision as a whole, because sometimes the boroughs come together, I've been to watch the London Marathon. We've had a music and drama workshop day, which was really fun. So it's just been a really great way to get to know other visually impaired people like myself. It's a very easy way to do that. But also, on another kind of angle for the visually impaired side of things, there's an organisation called VocalEyes, which operate all over the country. They're not a social group, but what they do is they organise audio described and handling tours at museums and galleries and theatres, things like that. I'll say they do these things all over the country, but they do quite a lot in London. And so I started going to these events. So for instance, they'll arrange events at museums where you can go around an exhibition, a whole group of you with an audio describer from VocalEyes and a curator from the exhibition. So you get to hear what the artworks look like and also hear the history and the context behind them. And then also have a handling tour of like the materials the artist used, and you get to feel like tactile versions of the images and things. And it all comes together really nicely and brings it to life. And in the theatre, you can go for a touch tour before the show starts. You can go up on the stage and explore the set and feel the costumes and everything else, and meet the cast, get to recognise their voices. And then you get an audio described headset during the show. So I've been trying these things and they've been really, really great. But a side effect of that is that you also get nattering to the people that you're on the tour with, especially if you're exploring objects together, discussing what you're seeing. And often people come to these events quite regularly, so they get to know some of the people that go to these things, but that means they also recognise new faces, new voices that come in, and they're only too happy to kind of come and say hello to you. So as a result of that, I've started meeting people outside of those groups occasionally as well, separate to the tours. In particular, for instance, I've met a lady who works at South East London Vision, and I didn't think I'd be able to join their group because I don't live in their area of London. But she said, no, that's fine. We'd love to have you join us. As long as you can get to us, then it's absolutely fine. We're happy for you to join us. So in October, I'm going to a couple of events with them for the first time to meet them. And that's going to be really, really fun. So that's been a very welcome side effect of going on these tours, a very surprising outcome, as well as just going there like for the educational value. So it's been very worthwhile going on these things, and I still do go to these things, so I may still meet more people that way. So I now had a wonderful variety of things to do. With all these social groups, I can go to whatever events I like, enjoy various activities and experiences, and keep meeting people there, getting to know people more and more as I see them more and more. And it's great. It's really good fun. But it wasn't the only thing I was experimenting with either, because the final thing that I also started experimenting with was the online world of kind of socialising, the whole social media thing. And because when I was searching for stuff online, I thought I would type in my eye conditions, Aniridia and Nystagmus, just out of curiosity to see what come up. I knew you'd get things like the Aniridia Network and the Nystagmus Network come up. But what seemed to surprise me was the amount of bloggers and YouTubers I started to stumble across. And as I started finding one or two and digging around, I kind of found more and more and more, and you realise just how huge this community of visually impaired and disabled bloggers and video makers there are out there. Just for the visually impaired, you've got people like Fashioneyesta and Lucy Edwards from Yesterday's Wishes and Luke Sam Sowden and My Blurred World and Life of a Blind Girl and How Casey Sees It and Tommy Edison, James Rath and Molly Burke and so many other people. I could keep naming names and I'm bound to forget someone, but you get the idea. There's so many of these wonderful people out there, and they're getting such great reactions to their content. They're sharing their experiences and showing that they can live a wonderful life with their conditions. They're people first and foremost, and they're getting reactions from lots of people with similar conditions saying it's great that you're posting this, I can really relate to it, I really appreciate the advice. And you can get parents saying my child's got this condition. It's really reassuring to know that they will be able to live a full and happy life. And I was looking at this, I thought this could be a good way to make some useful connections. Not in London necessarily, just in general. Might be able to get some useful advice, and it's just a kind of little extra bit of comfort to have extra friends I can talk to online. So I started kind of tentatively getting involved. I first made a video for Scope about their End the Awkward campaign, which was a bit of an awkward video in itself because I didn't really know what I was doing, but it went down well. And then I started kind of doing a written blog about my conditions and the things I enjoyed, and then kind of got back into YouTube videos from that, kind of using my blog as a kind of springboard, as a script, if you like, and just started building up kind of my blog post on my YouTube channel about my condition, my experiences, and the things I enjoy in general, like music and TV and stuff. And when I got to London, I started, writing about my experiences in London and filming videos in the city and things to kind of add extra content that way. And, I didn't expect it to get much attention. I thought, if nothing came of it, I could just delete it and nobody would notice. And I fully expected that to happen, to be honest. But I did start to get noticed, and it has had some very interesting and surprising consequences. So, for instance, James from the Aniridia Network got in touch with me, and we started chatting, and he arranged to meet me when I was in London when I moved here to help welcome me to the city. So we chatted for a good few hours there, and I started kind of helping them with their Aniridia Network videos on their YouTube channel. And ultimately, I ended up producing the promo video for Aniridia Day, the very first Aniridia Day that was held in 2017, which was a very fun project to do with James's assistance. And the day was very, very successful. The Facebook group was very active on that day in particular, and we're going to do the event again next year. In terms of Nystagmus, your equivalent is the Wobbly Wednesday campaign, which is also coming up this year and deserves a mention because obviously I was at the open day today. So James is the first person I met as a direct result of my blogging online. I never expected that I would meet people in real life as a direct result of my ramblings online, but I did, and to make a real life friend that way is wonderful and proved my content was popular and it was having a very beneficial impact. And then more recently, I've been meeting up with the wonderfully gorgeous and talented Emily Davison from Fashioneyesta. And that's another great friend I've made in real life as a direct result of my online blogging and things, because I started off, as just a regular fan of her channel, liking her videos and commenting and stuff. And then when she opened up community captioning, I started doing subtitles for some of her videos, and that was great. And from that, she gave me shout outs, and I did a few more subtitles and things and just carried on doing them since. And we got chatting as a result of that. She was very grateful, and when she found out I was moving to London, she offered to meet up and show me around, and thank me for helping her out with her channel, which was a great surprise to me, and I was very grateful for that. So we chatted for the best part of a year, and then in August this year we managed to get our schedules to sync up, and we met up in Sevenoaks in Knoll Park, and it was a wonderful day, which she did a vlog of, which you can see on her Fashioneyesta Extra channel. And we've met up a couple more times since then, which I've blogged about and she's blogged about as well. And then we've got more plans like for the months ahead as well. So, I've made another great friend. I'm very grateful to her that she's put the time aside, to meet up with me and show me around and enable me to make a new friend in that way. So getting involved in the whole blogging and YouTubing side of things online has enabled me to make a couple of wonderful friends in real life already. And that's been a wonderful thing. It's not something I expected would happen, so I'm extremely grateful for that. But also another aspect of it is the fact that I've been asked to make guest posts as well. So Scope asked me to make a couple of posts for them. I had East London Vision asked me to make a post. Ability Superstore have exchanged a guest post with me. The RNIB have asked to publish one of my posts in their newsletter. And the Nystagmus Network asked me to make a post for their newsletter, which got me invited to make the talk that I gave today. So again, that's allowed me to make, new acquaintances today and get to know a few new people. So all in all, the stuff I've been trying over the past year or so, be it the social groups offline or the social media stuff online, has all been very beneficial and had some very surprising consequences that I've been very grateful for, and I've made some very good friends through all of those means. So my advice to people is basically, if there are things out there that interest you, give them a go. Don't be afraid to try things out. I had to push myself out of my comfort zone to generate a new social network for myself, and I've been doing very well at that. It's been very, very worthwhile trying. I know it's easier said than done to go out there and do things. I know people's confidence levels differ and things, but if you do your research and find things that interest you and find ways of doing things, and if you find those opportunities, then grasp them with both hands and give them a go, because you never know what might come out of it. And that's it really. That's basically what I spoke about today. like I say, everyone enjoyed the talk, and I hope you've enjoyed watching the video as well. I hope maybe it's given you some ideas, or just giving you some reassurance maybe that it is possible to do these things. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you for another video very, very soon. Bye.